My name is Robin Slaw, and I'm your Director of Religious Education. I'm really excited about this month's Family Chapel. We'll be talking about commitment. Haley and Samantha are lighting the chalice with their parents. Michael is playing one of my favorite hymns, and I get to talk to Frank the firefighter about what it means to make a commitment to fight fires. And Kelly has a cool craft to share. So what is commitment anyway? Commitment means doing what needs to be done regardless of your talents or mood, even if you are sad or mad, tired or afraid, or if something better comes along. You still need to follow through with a commitment with a positive attitude and determination. I don't think I could find a better example of people who live into their commitment than to talk with a firefighter. Frank shared some great stories with us, and I want to let you know that a story he tells was scary at the beginning, but has a good ending. And parents, we are talking about death and injury, so I hope you choose to talk to your family after the chapel ends. As Unitarian Universalists, our faith calls us to help make the world better. I hope you'll talk about some of the ways that you can make that kind of commitment, even now during the pandemic, even if you're just a kid, or even if you're old and too tired. I would love to hear from you what kinds of commitments you decide to make. I love you all and miss you so much. I can't wait to see you all again when we can be back in person.
Hi everyone, we are
Jeff,
Samantha, Haley,
and Patricia. We're so happy that you've joined us for Family Chapel today. We're going to light the chalice, and if you have a chalice where you are, we invite you to light yours. If you don't have a chalice at home, feel free to light a candle.
will you join us in our chalice lighting words for this month? You can find the chalice lighting words in the packet that was sent to your house at the beginning of the month.
as we light this chalice, we make a commitment to stay curious, to ask questions and make observations, to learn about ourselves and how we interact with the world. We make a commitment to wonder each day, to practice gratitude each day, to learn and be inspired. We make a commitment to Unitarian Universalism, the values we hold together, the promises we make to each other. We have a commitment to change for the future, to put love into action, to work for equity and justice, to promise to build a better world.
Whenever we gather together for chapel, we set aside some time to honor our joys and sorrows.
A joy I have is to go to the Delaware tournament. A joy I have is that in this coronavirus, I've been able to spend more time with my family.
We drop in one last stone to honor the joys and sorrows that we carry in our hearts that remain unspoken. We send blessings to all of you. We are a part of a web of life that makes us one with people, one with all the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of being alive that gives us the power to remember, to love, and to care. Words adapted from Frederick E. Gillis.
Thanks for joining us today. Bye.
Bye.
This is the fire of commitment.
When the fire of commitment
everybody. I'm talking to Frank Hazard today, who spent 29 years of his adult life being a firefighter. And when Miss Kelly and I were thinking about different levels of commitment, we couldn't think of anything else that required more commitment than being a firefighter. So here's Frank Hazard.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for being here with us. And I wonder if you will talk first about when you were a child and you were inspired to become a firefighter. How did that happen?
Okay. I think we were about 3 years old. I have a twin brother, Jeff. Many of you may have met him. And my mom had one twin son in each hand. And we were walking along a major street in Baltimore County where we lived at the time, and a fire engine went by. And my mom says that that's all we talked about for days. And for a 3-year-old to be obsessed with something for multiple days, it must have made a big impression. And she later reflected on that, and she said, I knew right then that there was something not quite right about you boys when it came to when it came to fire engines and firefighters and the fire service. And to be honest with you, that's before I have any memory. I have no memory of that. And it's the only job I ever wanted to do. So I'm one of those people that got to grow up and do their dream job. And I feel very fortunate to have done that.
That is a really special thing. So you sent me an email, and in part of it, you talked about actually volunteering with the fire department through your high school years and your college years. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So on the day we turned 16, again, my twin brother and I, we turned applications into the fire department in Howard County to be volunteers, and we also got our driver's licenses that day. So it was a big day. We both passed the test, so we both got our driver's licenses, and we soon were indoctrinated into the Howard County Fire Department, and we did all the training. And in Howard County at 16, you can actually function as a firefighter and an EMT. You're allowed to do all the duties that that older people do. So it's a lot of responsibility that a teen can take on, but it's a great thing to do. I mean, it gives you an extracurricular activity that's very meaningful, and you get to be part of something, and it was exciting as well. What was weird is in high school, as a 10th grader at 16 years old, I would go in high school and I would raise my hand and say, can I please go to the bathroom? And then after school, I would go and ride an ambulance or a fire engine, and I was making life or death decisions about grown-ups. So it was a weird time to be a child in school and be an adult out on the streets of Howard County. And then I went to college, and my senior year of college at University of Maryland, my brother, who was a nursing major at University of Maryland, told me that the Baltimore City Fire Department was giving an entrance exam, civil service exam. So he and I went to the Civic Center in downtown Baltimore on a Saturday morning with thousands of other people, and we took the test. And then I graduated from college, and I started my first job not in the fire department. And about almost a year later, I got a call saying, if you want the job, we're going to start a fire academy class. And that was actually January 6th of 1986. And so I started in 86, and I worked for 29 years, and I finished in 2015, summer of 2015.
Tell me about training. And I'm curious to hear, now that I've heard you talking, I'm curious to hear about the training as a volunteer and then going to the fire academy. And I especially want to hear about, what kind of commitment that required from you.
It's a lot of training, especially as a volunteer. It's many months of a couple of nights a week, typically. It's both classroom training and hands-on practical training. They teach you everything about the job. And there's a lot of things, it is a lot of stuff like how to use hoses and how to put ladders up and how to tie knots and how to, and then all the EMS stuff, emergency medical stuff, like how to take care of any kind of medical emergency that you come across. And a lot of people, when they do those, take that training, they decide it isn't for them, or some people that take it as a volunteer really like it and say, I've got to do this for a career. But many people that do it for pay as a career start out as volunteers as young people like I did, and then they decide, yeah, this is the thing I want to do, and they try to get a job as a firefighter in a paid fire department. Most fire departments across the country are a mix of volunteers and career or paid people in one fire department. That's the case with almost all of Maryland, except the biggest cities are all paid fire departments, and the smallest rural places are usually all volunteer fire departments. So I volunteered in a combination volunteer and paid fire department, but I worked in an all paid fire department. And the training, when you get hired in a fire department, they generally, in Maryland anyway, they put you through their own training, which is to, if you were a volunteer, is to reinforce your knowledge and skills. They don't require any training, so some people are starting from the beginning with firefighting training when they get hired. And some of us had a lot of experience, like myself, but a lot of that is also not just teaching you firefighting skills and EMS skills, but it's also teaching you, it's indoctrinating you into their way, into their system and their way of doing things. And that's everything from saying yes, sir, and no, ma'am, to your superiors, and how, what the expectations of an employee are, and all those kind of things that go along with a job. And the fire service is a semi-military organization, meaning it's modeled on the military, the Army or the Navy. We have ranks that sound like Army ranks, and it is structured. We do have the notion of insubordination. If you refuse to carry out an order, you can be charged with being insubordinate. It is against the rules to be afraid. It's what they call cowardice of duty. If I order you to do something and you won't do it out of fear, you can be charged with being afraid, basically. So there's a lot of things that resemble military, but it's not quite as strict as the military or as formal. It's just modeled after that.
So I want to talk a little bit about being afraid, because that's another kind of a commitment, right? You agree as a firefighter, whether it's volunteer or professional, you agree to overcome all your fears. It's a huge commitment. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. We are actually sworn. We swore an oath to protect the citizens that pay our salaries, the taxpayers that we protect. And that includes being willing to stand in harm's way. I mean, what it really means is if somebody's in a terrible situation, I think about the flooding in Ellicott City, or a building fire, or a subway fire, or any other situation where somebody's life is at stake. They could be killed, or if prompt action isn't taken. Firefighters have assumed the responsibility or the role of acting on behalf of those people that are in peril. And to do that, that often means you have to put yourself in peril. And sometimes we get hurt or killed doing our job, and that is part of the job. And I think most firefighters accept that risk. It's part of what they accept when they sign on to do that job. And we hope it doesn't happen. And when it does, when somebody gets hurt, we never like it, of course. We don't want our friends to be hurt, but we respect each other because we are all willing to do that when the time comes. And there is a saying that firefighters aren't really being paid every day or day to day for what they do, but we are being paid for what we're willing to do when the time comes. Excuse me. So some people call us crazy. And some people think that what we're willing to do, nobody could pay us enough to do that. And I think that's true. I think there's a sense of duty and enthusiasm. But I'll tell you, Robin, it's a lot easier to put yourself in harm's way and be in danger if you have some buddies with you. We're never really alone. And when you have fellow firefighters that are right there with you, you are giving each other courage in a group that individuals won't have. And that's a very important part of the psychology behind what we can do. And so part of the training that we talked about in Fire Academy, you always do things in groups, and they're training you to function as a group so that you can have more psychological strength, emotional strength as a group. And you do rely on each other a lot. And that makes you really, the firefighters are close. We're like a family. We even call each other brother and sister. And it's because we rely on each other for our lives often enough that it makes a difference in the way we see each other.
I'm
and-
sure.
Yeah, and part of that commitment also is that we have very high standards. We strive for 0 mistakes. Mistakes in our line of work kill people, so it's got to be right every time. And we accept all challenges. There's no 911 call that you could make that we're not going to come answer. No matter what it is, we're going to try to make it better. And we don't make any excuses. We don't allow ourselves to make any excuses. So there's no situation that we won't make an attempt. The one I think about are the Twin Tower fires on 9/11, and firefighters were climbing stairs in those towers when the towers collapsed.
Right.
They were going up when the towers fell, and that's the mentality of firefighters. And we hold each other accountable. So we have a commitment to each other, and part of that is saying, hey, that last fire or that last run we went out on, you didn't do this right. And I just want to make sure you know it and that you know what you did wrong. And I'd like to help you get that right so it doesn't happen again, so we don't have any mistakes in what we do.
Would you be willing to share a story of the best experience you ever had as a firefighter?
Sure. I was a chief. My white helmet means I'm a chief. So the chief, if you ever see a firefighter with a white hat or a white helmet, that person is the chief. And so I was the chief at a fire. It was in a public housing complex in West Baltimore. And it was in the middle of the night, like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I got out of my chief's car and I was putting on all of my gear to go into the go up to the fire, and I could see the fire. The flames were shooting out of a house, an apartment house, and I knew the fire was bad. And then I heard the wailing, the crying of a mother, and I knew that sound because I've heard it before. But there's a sound that family members make when they know their family is inside a burning building and they're afraid they're dying or dead. And I was sickened by that sound because I thought, oh my gosh, somebody's inside there and they're not going to live. That's what went through my mind. I was pretty sure whoever was still inside there was already dead, to be honest. And I remember a man, just a bystander, was tugging on my arm to try to get me to the fire quicker than I could get there, but I needed to get dressed. I needed to put on my boots and pants and coat and this helmet and everything before I could walk up to the fire. And I was doing that as quickly as I could, but he was very, he was urging me to do it faster. And I sort of jogged up in the court in the public housing complex, and the mother of 3 children was down on the ground wailing, carrying on. And I asked her, how many people are in there? And she couldn't answer me. And some other people, neighbors, said there are 3 children in there. And I'm like, oh man, this isn't good. And I thought, if we have a shot at saving these children, we got to act really quickly. So the firefighters, I didn't have to tell any of the people working with me. We all had the same thing in mind: is let's get these kids out of here. Let's get in as fast as we can and get the kids out. But I wasn't hopeful. I expected there to be 3 dead children. And they brought the kids out. They went in and they started to put the fire out. The smoke was so thick. You can't imagine how thick the smoke was. And they brought there was a little guy and like a 15-year-old that looked like an adult size, and then like a 7 or 8-year-old. But the little one was like 3 or 4, I think. And I think they brought I don't remember which one was first, but they brought them all three out front. None of them were breathing, but they all had a heartbeat, but they were non-breathing. So we got to them just in that like 2-minute time frame where you could stop breathing, but your heart is still beating. And if we can get them breathing again, they might live. And we all knew that. And so they were starting resuscitation efforts on this, blacktop courtyard in the middle of the night while the fire is still burning. And I was calling for more ambulances to help take care of the children. And anyway, we got them packaged up and we got them put in ambulances, and they took them to shock trauma at University of Maryland Hospital. And my boss, who was a deputy chief at the time, I was a battalion chief, my boss came to the fire and he said, I'm gonna go to the hospital and I'll call you back. So we all wear radios, and that deputy chief went to the hospital and he called me on the radio, and everybody could hear this. And I expected him to say that they didn't make it or, whatever. And he said, I've got some great news for you. All three of those children are breathing on their own. And I looked around at these firefighters, men and women, who are the toughest people I know, and they're just tears, pouring down their faces. And I'm thinking, not this time, they didn't die that time. Because I've been to fires where they did, but we saved 3 little children. So that's the greatest moment.
I'm not even going to be able to talk. You're making me cry too. That's such an amazing story. I have a question about changes that you've seen over the years, because 29 years is a long time to be a firefighter. And so I'm wondering what kind of changes you've seen. And one that occurs to me is, I wonder, were you a firefighter before women were allowed to be a firefighter? And I bet that's one change you can talk about.
I can talk about that change. These are great questions. Yes, when I became a firefighter, we had one female firefighter. Her name was Andrea McFarland, and I worked with her a little bit, and I really liked working with her. And we had female paramedics, but we didn't have any other firefighters that did the firefighting job. And in the course of the 29 years that I was there, a lot more women were hired. And we now, that fire department, the one I worked for, Baltimore City, has a female battalion chief who also worked with me when she was a rookie firefighter. She's really, really bright and capable. And one of the best chiefs they have, to be honest, and she's really good. And we have a lot of women who do a great job in the fire department for us. I remember when I was a battalion chief, one of the women, there was a company, one fire engine, and the people assigned to it is called a company. And they had never had a woman before. And I knew they were getting the first woman assigned to that company. And this is like first woman in 150 years. I mean, so I remember we got together for battalion training, and she was assigned to an engine company, which is the one that carries the water and the hose. But all firefighters are expected to be able to do all duties. So we had a ladder drill where we were practicing putting ladders up. And I knew she could do that because she passed fire academy, and you have to be able to do that to get to graduate. So I knew she could do it. And I purposefully paired everyone up to throw ladders, and I didn't pair her with someone, and I just told them, I'll do it with her. She and I will do it. So I'm the battalion chief, and I'm going to throw the ladder just like everybody else. And I didn't do any rehearsal or preparation or anything. I expected her to be able to do it. And I just said, we're going to do it together. And she said, okay. And we did, and it was fine. It probably wasn't the best two people to ever do it. That was probably on me because I might have been a little rusty as a chief. But the chief and the first woman put the ladder up, and I think it just reinforced to everybody that women can do it as well as men. In fact, some women do it better than some men. And so the thing about it is it does require upper body strength. So women really have to build their shoulder and arm muscles because They aren't as naturally as strong as some men, but if they really are dedicated to it and they want to, build up their muscles so that they can do the job, they're certainly capable of it. I think children have children under 4, almost 4, 3-year-olds have successfully called 911.
Yeah.
Kids are great in emergencies. If they've been trained, like they learned what to do, they usually remember what to do, and most of the time they can execute it. Sometimes better than adults. The whole stop, drop, and roll, and calling 911 and crawling out of a house that's on fire, and all those things that children can recall that and implement it oftentimes better than adults.
So I know that is often covered in school.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea of stop, drop, and roll, and how do you get out of the house if there's a fire or an emergency. And I wonder if that's being covered this year. So do you want to talk to the kids for a minute about
Sure.
what are important conversations that families should have right now, especially if they're not talking about it in school this year?
Right. So the number one, there's 3 important things that I usually tell people about this. The number one way that children die in fires is that older siblings, older brothers and sisters, play with fire, start a fire accidentally when they're playing with fire. And the kid that starts the fire usually gets out, but oftentimes a younger sibling will die in the fire. That's a very common scenario. So you need to never play with fire. Please don't play with matches. Don't play with a cigarette lighter. Don't play with any kind of fire. And if you find anything like that, give it to your parents. It's just, you don't want to play with fire. Fire wants to do one thing. It has one ambition in life, and that's to get bigger. That's the only thing a fire wants to do. And it will try to get bigger if you let it. And it's really hard to control a fire. Even if you think you know what you're doing, you should never play with matches or a cigarette lighter. And then the other 2 things is, if you catch your clothing on fire, a common way is if you have a gas stove and you're standing near the stove. If you have long hair, it can catch on fire. If you have a loose sleeve, it can catch on fire. And it's scary when you're on fire. It's frightening. And what a lot of people want to do when they're scared is run. But if you run when you're on fire, the fire will get bigger. And we don't want fires to get bigger. So the best thing to do is drop down onto the floor and roll around. And if your hair's on fire, pat your head with your hands. And if you're around somebody that's on fire, you can take whatever you have, a blanket or a bedspread or even a small carpet or a dish towel or anything you have, and you can cover them with that and help them extinguish the fire. So stop, drop, and roll. Don't run, drop to the floor, roll around and pat yourself until the fire's out. And then the last thing is, if there's a fire, like a smoke alarm goes off in your house and you think there's a fire, get outside and stay out. Don't go back in for any reason, and stay outside and call the fire department from outside. So don't play with fire. Stop, drop, and roll if you're on fire. If you think there's a fire in your house, get outside, stay outside, and call the fire department from outside. And the phone number is 911.
All right. I think I've covered everything. Thank you so much. This was so great to talk to you, and I loved hearing your stories and everything.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I hope we have inspired some children to become a firefighter maybe one day.
Yeah, that would be great. If anybody wants to be a firefighter and wants to talk to me more about it, feel free to call me or email me, or we can do a Zoom call. And hopefully someday we'll actually see each other in person again.
Yeah.
It felt weird to put this helmet on my head again.
I bet it did.
Yeah, it was kind of nice to wear it again. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Frank.
My
I'm
pleasure.
just really, really grateful to both hear your stories and for you to give the time to this. So.
Hi, everyone. I'm Miss Kelly. We are so glad that you're joining us for Family Chapel. To those of you who have been joining us, welcome back. And if you're joining us for the first time, we are especially glad to see you. So I'm here to share a craft idea with you. This month, we are talking about commitment. And we're talking about all of the ways that we are committed to ourselves and to our communities and to other people, the ways that we're committed to making the world a better place. And we're thinking about it like a puzzle. You know, when you get a new jigsaw puzzle home and you see the box and you see the whole picture and what it's going to look like, and then you open it up and you have all of these pieces to put together. And that's the idea that we're going to play with this month. So, in your RE packet this month, you are going to receive a puzzle. And your puzzle is going to be blank when you receive it. And so what we're inviting you to do is to take your blank puzzle and draw a picture of the things that you are committed to. Maybe you are committed, maybe you're committed to love or the environment or peace. You can draw a big picture. You guys are much better artists than I am, so you'll do a great job with that. You can also use words to think about the things that you're committed to. Whatever you choose, you're going to take some time and draw that onto your puzzle piece. And then you're going to cut out your pieces. And maybe you can ask a brother or a sister or a mom or a dad to come over with you and put your puzzle together. As you know, Ms. Robin and I would love to see what you create. So if you think about it, maybe take a picture or two and send it to us through email, and we'd love to see it. So again, think this month about the things that you are committed to, the ways that you can help to make the world a better place. We miss you guys. We can't wait to see you again in person, and we'll see you next month for a new Family Chapel.